Okay, we are live in 3, 2, 1. Yeah.
And we are live. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which area of the world you're joining us today. Whether you're joining us through the Facebook live stream or through the Zoom meeting, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, 22nd of May, the official International Day for Biological Diversity. My name is Paulina. I'm Mexican, 25 years old, a member of Plan for the Planet since 2011, and I am honored to be here with you as the host for today's webinar, Solving Crisis. This webinar was co-organized by Plan for the Planet, which is a global youth-led organization that aims to raise awareness amongst children and adults about the issues of climate change and global justice, as well as to plant 1 trillion trees. And we organized this webinar also with the GYBN, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, which is an international network of youth organizations and individuals from all over the world, whose common goal is to prevent the loss of biodiversity. I am truly honored, and I'd like to thank our remarkable speakers for finding time in your busy agendas to join us today. We truly appreciate it. You probably, all of you guys in our audiences, know who is joining us, but I would like to give a small introduction of each of them. So today we have Elizabeth Maruma is the Acting Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity. She is a lawyer and a career diplomat with a postgraduate diploma in international relations and diplomacy. She's working with she has worked now with the United Nations Environment Program for over 2 decades. And she's focused on development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws at national, regional, and international levels. We also have as a speaker, David Nabarro. He is the World Health Organization Special Envoy on COVID-19. He is the co-director of the Imperial College Institute of Global Health Innovation and the Imperial College London. He is also the appointed Special Envoy of WHO, Director General on COVID-19, and he received the World Food Prize for leadership in raising the profile and building coalitions for action for better nutrition across sustainable development goals. As a third speaker, we also have Sagar, Aryal, a good friend of mine, part also of Plan for the Planet for a long time. He is our CTO of Plan for the Planet. He is also the founder and president of the Sano Sansar Initiative to encourage children and youth for sustainable leadership in his home country, Nepal. He studied analytic mathematics, philosophy, and political theory at St. John's College. I am very, very happy to be here with you guys today. And just to give you a small heads up on how the logistics will work today. First, we will listen to each of our speakers' opening presentations. And then after that, we will open a discussion in which all of you will have the chance, all of you from our audiences will have the chance to make direct questions to our speakers. For those joining us in the Zoom chat, please write down your questions in the chat area. For those attending through the Facebook Live, please write down your question in the comment area. I would also like to take the last minute I have right now for introductions to thank the awesome team in the background right now, which is Yugradna Srivastava, Uday Chegotse, and also Fatu Yang, which are helping us keeping good contact with you for those in Facebook and those in Zoom to make sure that everyone's questions are appointed and to make this webinar a success. So thank you everyone for being here. Without any more delays, I think it will be great if we start now with our speaker, David Nabarro. Elizabeth Maruma will still take some more minutes to join, I think. So if it's okay for you, David, we would love to have you now. One second, I think you're muted. Let me unmute you. Perfect. You're muted now, David. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Isn't it great to be connected, and so lovely that all of you are joining, not just through the wonderful Zoom that we're on, but also through Facebook. And it's so good that there are people from all over the world, and that it's young people coming together today, Biodiversity Day. It's a privilege to be with you. I'm a medical doctor, but I've also been working, as you heard, for some time on food and on nature. And so it's just a true honor to be able to connect these issues together in these few minutes that I'm going to talk with you. I want to talk first about this virus, the virus that causes the disease called COVID. It's a new virus. It just appeared about 6 months ago. And so that means that humanity has been learning about it super fast and trying to understand it. And there's so many things that we don't know. But I thought I'd just summarize to you what we do know, because I think it's important. This virus is dangerous. I'm smiling while I talk to you, but actually my message is really deadly serious. It's a dangerous virus. It mustn't be underestimated. And the more we learn about it and find out about it, the more we're respecting it and saying, yes, we mustn't take it lightly. It's not just a flu. Absolutely not. It's a disease caused by a coronavirus. And the coronavirus is a kind of virus that's really tricky to deal with. And yes, it's killing a lot of people, but it's also making other people really sick. I'm sure some of you have had the COVID, and perhaps a few of you have found that it's really a horrible illness. And perhaps some of you who've had it are still not feeling fully recovered. And that's the point. Because we don't know about it, we must take it seriously. And one other thing about it, before I get into more detail, it's not going to go away in the foreseeable future. It's here to stay. And so therefore, we have to learn to live with it and to be able to have all the good things that we want in our lives. And in fact, much better lives than we were having before COVID came along. Because if we can't learn to live with it, it will continue to cause sickness and suffering and really upset the way societies function. And so what I'm saying is that learning to be COVID ready is really the new normal that we're going to have in our lives together. Now, actually, that means being quite alert and defending ourselves against this virus, so that if people with the disease are in our midst, we've got to really support them. We have to separate them from other people. We have to interrupt transmission of the virus because it moves from person to person really easily. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually kill very many people. And that's a good thing in terms of us being able to learn to live with it, because provided that we can stop transmission, we can protect the people that we know are vulnerable, provided we can close down outbreaks of this disease when they happen and where they happen, because they start very small, but they do that, then we'll be able to live with this virus. And you know, there are some odd things being said, so I thought I'd share them with you. People say, well, if we're going to learn to live with COVID, we have to make a choice. Either we're going to look after people's health, or we're going to be able to maintain our economies. I say that's a false choice. Actually, to be able to sustain the economies of communities, of nations, and of the world, the one thing we've got to do is to all of us learn to be able to actually stop this virus from spreading. And we've got to learn what we do when we get sick with the disease, and we've got to learn how we can protect other people who are at risk. And then if we do that, then our economies can work. You see, some people are saying, well, to get on top of this virus, don't you have to have a lockdown? I say no. A lockdown is something that you can do if you're a government. At the beginning, when you're just finding the COVID in your communities and you're getting a bit nervous, so you say, stop everything. But of course, if you stop everything, what does it do? It prevents you from going to university. It prevents kids from going to school. It prevents people from going and getting their employment. And it really does have bad impacts on households, particularly poor households, as I'll explain. But I don't want people to say a lockdown is the only way to deal with it. I say, use the time of the lockdown to make sure that everybody, every single person, understands how they can get on top of this virus, understands how they can get ahead of it, and build up basic public health services so that you can have testing available, so that you can isolate people who've got the disease, and then you'll be able to manage. And if you do that quickly, energetically, and you focus on that during a lockdown, and at the same time you make sure that people who are affected by the lockdown are prevented from becoming poor or hungry, or indeed preventing from feeling extremely angry, then you can get on top of it. So I'm saying to governments, yes, end your lockdowns quickly, but make sure that you've got all communities everywhere knowing what they've got to do to live with this virus. And you know, there's some countries that are doing this really well. Some of them are really poor countries. Some countries are in East Asia, like Vietnam. They know what to do. They're doing it. Their economy is going really well. New Zealand, they're with a good woman leader, and I think that's important. They've worked out how to deal with it. And there are many countries in Africa that followed the guidance and said, if we get COVID coming, we have to act quickly and stop transmission. And they're doing well. They're struggling, but they're doing well. But there are other countries, even quite wealthy countries, that waited and discussed and debated and said, oh, this is not really very serious. So, say 4 or 5 weeks. And suddenly they've had huge explosive outbreaks. And dealing with those outbreaks has been really, really difficult. So act early, act robustly, and bring everybody on board, and then you can get on top of this virus. That's a bit like climate change, isn't it? Aren't we all saying, act promptly to deal with climate change? Aren't we saying, act now before the problem gets any more serious? Aren't we asking governments to be quick and not to prevaricate and be half-hearted, but to really take climate change seriously? Yes, we are. And there are similarities, therefore, between COVID and climate change. Let's give you another similarity. This COVID is affecting poor people really badly. We know that. We've got all the statistics. We're seeing it on our televisions and in our newspapers. Well, so with climate change. Who suffers most from climate change? Poor people. People who've got very little resources. They get affected by drought. They get affected by storms. Look at this terrible, terrible tropical cyclone in the Bay of Bengal right now as I speak. It's poor people who are being hurt. And so we've got to realize that many of these global threats, they affect poor people the most. But to deal with them, we've all got to change, rich and poor. When the Sustainable Development Goals were developed, that was a sign that it was for the whole world that has to change, to deal with climate change, to deal with inequity, to ensure good health. Now, all people have to be involved, but we depend on governments, and we depend on businesses, and we depend on civil society to create the conditions within which we can act. We could create the conditions in which we can act for COVID and to get our societies resilient, and we depend on all those actors to deal with climate change. Being sure that we can be resilient in the face of ill health, that matters more to young people than anybody else, because young people are going to be there to inherit the earth from people like me in their 70s. When I'm dead, you'll be the ones who are making decisions. You don't want to have a world where resources have been squandered. You don't want to have a world where poor people are more likely to suffer ill health. So for the COVID and for climate, it's young people's voices that really matter the most. And that is something that I really want to stress. Ecosystems, or what I call living systems, are key to effective climate action. Nature-based solutions are absolutely essential for good action on climate, whether it's about mitigation or whether it's about adaptation. And resilience and being able to be resilient is the key for poor people to be able to cope with climate change. And it's the key for poor people to be able to live with COVID. This is only possible through unity of purpose among everybody. If governments are squabbling about what to do about health and debating whether or not they want to cut off the funding for the only organization for World Health, the World Health Organization, that weakens the world. If governments are squabbling about what to do about climate change, that weakens the world. There must be no tolerance of governments to be finding inappropriate reasons to fail to act on climate change or health. And that is what young people must demand. You must demand all the time. You've been doing it, but you must do it more. Cry out for unified action on health. Cry out for unified action on climate. Cry out for unified action on nature. That's the only way we create a world that will be good for future generations. Fragmented action is a disaster. I want to stress that trees, nature, and biodiversity are vital for our common future. A world in which species are being destroyed at the rate that it's been going on in the last few years is a world that will be very sad for the future. A world in which nature is being destroyed and inappropriately treated is bad for our health. All new diseases that are really causing trouble are tending to come from the animal kingdom or from the environment. If we mistreat our animals, if we mistreat the environment, we make ourselves more susceptible. So working for biodiversity and environmental sustainability is also working for health, health for all. And that's what will enable us to be resilient. So my message to all of you and to all young people is to remember that everything is connected. Health, environment, climate, equity, sustainability, dignified living. It's all connected, as in the Sustainable Development Goals. Treat these issues separately, pretend they're not connected, you create a much greater vulnerability for the future. Tell the world to work in an interconnected way. Tell governments to connect between the sectors, between the disciplines. That's the key to the future. And recognize that basically climate and health are issues that require all humanity working together. Separating communities and countries, divide and rule, inequity is bad for the future. And we really do have to refuse to accept that these issues are dealt with in any fragmented way. The power of working together, the power of one humanity is enormous. Humans are made to work together. We've got huge potential. We've all seen it, that when humans come together, work together, have fun together, create together, do research together, we have a much more viable world, a world where we can and will create a sustainable future. Fragmented, divided, and made to hate each other, no, it doesn't work. So please do everything you can to work for unity of humanity. It's the most precious asset we have, and it's the one that will enable us to deal with these kinds of threats. That's my message, and I'm so grateful to have the chance to talk with you today. I will stay on and look forward to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for this amazing, inspiring, uplifting, and beautiful message. Tell the world to work in an interconnected way. Thank you. Thank you. This is the main message that I'm also keeping in my heart today. Thank you for this reminder. I think we all going through a quarantine situation right now are really grateful about this uplifting message. And I am sure that the audience will have some questions too. Everyone is agreeing. Everything is connected. Yes, Shania. We're seeing your comments, and we're gonna get some of your questions ready for the questions and answer session. On our next point, we will have Sagar Aryal. As I'm understanding, our other speaker, Miss Elizabeth, it's running a little bit of technical problems.
No, I'm online.
Ah, perfect.
I have been from the beginning.
Welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. And I wouldn't take much more time. We are super interested to hear your opening presentation. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And my apologies that it seemed at the beginning you are not seeing me, but I've been online even before you began. Indeed, it's my pleasure to join this event with the youth, an important stakeholder in our work. So let me begin by the theme of the day for biodiversity. Our solutions are in nature, which gives me an opportunity to celebrate nature's innumerable contributions to our everyday lives and to better appreciate that biodiversity provides the many solutions to the global challenges we are facing today. This year, the International Day for Biodiversity takes place, unfortunately, at an extraordinary time when the bigger part of the world is locked down. Our children, our youth are learning from home. Global priority is now on saving lives and ensuring healthy survival of their population. Nonetheless, the situation COVID-19 has also brought to us to where we are today and reaffirmed what we actually already knew, that biodiversity is fundamental for human health and survival. The pandemic has given us a new urgency to the need to protect biodiversity and its ecosystems. And thus, it serves as a stark reminder that urgent action is needed to preserve nature, conserve biodiversity, and protect human health, not only for today's generation, but more importantly, for you, the young generation of the future. While we need to take immediate action to respond to the healthy crisis, we also need to take long-term vision for biodiversity, a vision that will help us transform our relationship with nature and reduce the risks of future pandemics. The pandemic, however, provides us with a reset button on our relationship with nature. This is an opportune moment for all the stakeholders, the young and the old, to reflect how human health is intimately interconnected with the health of our planet and how we can better manage the critical resources that biodiversity and ecosystem provides. Presently, human activities are being held accountable for disturbing both the structure and functioning of ecosystems through the large-scale deforestation, habitat conversion and fragmentation, agriculture and livestock intensification, the unregulated trade in species used as food and medicine, and the over-harvesting of species to the brink of extinction. The unfortunate reality is that biodiversity is still being lost at an unprecedented rate in the history of mankind. And this presents both direct and indirect threats to our health and well-being. For instance, biodiversity is a source of medicines such as antibiotics. So the loss of fauna, flora, and microorganisms, some of which are yet to be discovered, limits the discovery of potential treatments for many diseases and healthy problems. Biodiversity loss also disrupts our cultures, traditions, and livelihoods. It limits the ability of indigenous peoples and local communities to use traditional medicinal practices that use wild animals and plants. This means that traditional knowledge cannot be passed on from one generation to the other, and your generation of the youth might miss all these cultural traditional values. These and many other impacts of biodiversity loss affects the well-being of the world poorest, the well-being of the youth, since the global population of youth today stands at 1.8 billion, with a close to 90% of them living in developing countries. Through your ongoing actions, we know that youth are particularly willing and enthusiastic when it comes to finding solutions to our current environmental and healthy challenges. The youth, you have a unique perspective on the nature that surrounds them. And with your creative minds, you have helped us develop solutions that will benefit us all. Since 2009, through the Plant for the Planet, you, the youth, have been planting billions of trees to replenish the degraded forests and landscapes. This inspiring movement has contributed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and to protect and conserve biodiversity throughout all regions of the world. Restoration of biodiversity, biodiverse forests and other ecosystems can greatly reduce climate risks, including droughts and floods. It can help restore rivers and wetlands, reconnect rivers to floodplains, and prevent soil erosion and desertification. Restoring forests in an urban or peri-urban context can help create corridors of fauna and flora and even contribute to improving our mental health. These and other ecosystems-based solutions are interrelated global challenges, plays an important role in keeping the planet healthy and ensuring that human beings can enjoy safe drinking water, food security, and good health. Fortunately, you, the youth, are at the forefront of global change and innovation. You, the youth, are taking advantage of the various technologies and communication tools to develop innovative solutions while advocating for biodiversity-friendly practices that can reduce pressure on ecosystems, which can in turn reduce the risk of disease emergencies and spread among people, animals, or other living species. In these times of social distancing and isolation, you, the youth, have been active in connecting communities together through social media platforms, and you are reaching out to people even in most remote areas, and therefore you have helped in lifting community spirits while encouraging them to share information and implementing biodiversity-friendly solutions. The Convention on Biological Diversity recognizes the benefits of engaging with you, the youth, in finding solutions to biodiversity loss. Several of our governing bodies' decisions have continued to encourage the youth to take active role in its processes, and parties have been invited to collaborate with you, the youth, in its implementation. Decisions taken at our various meetings of the Conference of the Parties have also invited the youth to contribute, particularly to the current development of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, due to be adopted at the next Conference of the Parties next year. Through the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, youth like you have already provided important inputs to the draft post-2020 framework, and working with other youth and stakeholders, but also working with government officials to ensure that this framework can contribute to nature's benefits for people now and the future generations to come. It is my greatest hope that the fight against COVID-19 will soon end or will win, much as David is not optimistic and we listen to the scientific evidence. But as we recover, we can pursue the opportunity to re-image and transform our relationship with nature. As critical allies, I continue to in nature and contribute to the much needed transformation towards sustainable development. So you as youth, as you take actions today, make the changes and thus do good to the current and future generation for which you will be the leaders of tomorrow. Happy International Biodiversity Day. And thank you very much for the opportunity to engage with you, the youth, the leaders of tomorrow.
I can see many of us in the screens clapping right now. Thank you so much for this message, Mrs. Elizabeth. Yes, taking this from your words, preventing biodiversity loss is key role to sustain a healthy world for all of us, as well as this ecosystem-based solutions. Thank you for also addressing the youth and the important role that we as young generations have to make this change happen and make this a reality for the near future. Thank you so much. And I can see how many people are already thanking you as well. I saw this comment that I'd really, really liked. Chi Wickham says, I'm learning so much more than I have ever known about biodiversity today. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And I can see a lot of questions. Our awesome team is now gathering all of them together. So in the next round of questions, we will make sure that they're addressed. Thank you again, Mrs. Elizabeth. And without any further delays, I would like to go now to the next speaker. Sagar, are you there? Let me unmute you.
Yes, can you all hear me?
I can hear you well.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for joining. Today I'm going to share a few solutions with building a Plan for the Planet. First, I'll share you how Plan for the Planet started and why we are building the apps, and give you a short tour of the apps that we're working on. Plan for the Planet was founded by 9-year-old Felix Finkbeiner. Obviously, we were inspired by Wangari Maathai, whom a lot of you may have known over the course of years that you've been involved in biodiversity. Wangari planted 30 million trees in over 30 years in Africa, and Felix wanted to plant 1 million trees in every country around the world. And when we came up with this idea about planting 1 million trees, we didn't know how many trees there were in the world. So we met Tom Crowther at Yale University, who came up with the research, and he figured out that there are 3 trillion trees around the world. And the same research team also came up with the result that there's room for additional 1 trillion trees in the world. So we took this number that we wanted to plant and we moved forward. Last year, when there was another research, magazines around the world wrote about the trillion trees and how trees are amazing machines that capture CO2. You can see the cover of Guardian, and there were a lot of other newspaper articles about it. But Plan for the Planet, we've been planting trees way before the trillion trees news came. And we wanted to build a model project on how we could have a very good reforestation project that has over 90% survival rate, because a lot of reforestation projects around the world has an average survival rate about 30–40%. This means that when you plant a tree, the chances of the tree surviving the next year is 30–40%. So we modeled a project in Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And today we have about 35 employees working in this region in our nursery and planting trees. And we have managed to receive a 94% survival rate. And we wanted to take this learning that we had in the last few years and bring it and make it accessible for everybody so that they can be a part of this reforestation journey without having to learn the same things that we learned over the course of years. In Mexico, we plant a tree every 15 seconds. And our goal in Mexico is to plant 100 million trees. And to plant the goal of 1 trillion trees, we need to have another 10,000 projects like ours. So planting 1 trillion trees is not possible if just Plant for the Planet is leading the way. So to solve this situation where we need the world to support us and to participate in the reforestation, we came up with the Plant for the Planet app. The Plant for the Planet app is a very simple app that allows transparent collection of data and very easy way to donate to these different projects and find who is planting the trees around the world. We're also open source, and I'm going to show you a few features about what you can do on the Plant for the Planet app. Everyone who joins the Plant for the Planet app gets their personal tree counter. So this is more like a ledger where you can see the trees that you planted, received in your birthday, or received as a gift in Christmas, or the trees that some companies have given to you as an exchange for merchandise that you bought. You can also find more than 90 projects right now on the app and choose to donate to any of these projects. If you don't have money and if you just want to look into the progress, this is also a place where you can see how all these projects are doing around the world. Obviously, you could also organize competitions. This has been an excellent tool where students organize competitions on the schools and invite other friends to plant trees locally in their garden or locally in their forests. However, companies could also use these tools to organize a massive company scale competitions where employees compete against each other to plant the most amount of trees. Obviously, since we allow not only to donate, but also register, this allows us to map the global scale of trees, how many trees are planted in which location in the world. You can gift trees. So for example, if it's a birthday of my grandma tomorrow, or today's International Biodiversity Day, and I want to gift all of you, I could use the app to make a gift of trees that can be planted by one of these 90 projects around the world. So you get to choose where the tree gets planted, whether it gets planted in Nepal, Mexico, Kenya, we get to choose these projects. And it's really important why we have these choices, because I think David earlier said about how biodiversity and the crisis links each other. And planting trees actually has a potential to create millions of jobs in the global south. And a lot of these projects that we have selected and curated are the projects from global south, because what we are looking at Plant for the Planet when building this app is not just about reforestation. We are linking different aspects of life, how we can make sure the trillion trees that we will be planting in the next decade will be connected to jobs, will be replacing the jobs in renewable energy, will be replacing the job in forestation, will be helpful in capturing the carbon, and also maybe in furniture industries in future. So the idea here is to channel the resource so that we can focus on a global economy that is led by the reforestation initiatives of the next decade. And to show how people can get engaged, Plant for the Planet has a leaderboard, which we call a new kind of Forbes list, because people have always been worrying about money. And now we are concentrating on trees, because if we plant 1 trillion trees, it will buy us the time that we can use to advance in renewable energy, the time we can advance in changing from cars that run on diesel or petrol or gas to more environment-friendly vehicles, or to move our cities from cars and buses to bicycles. So we want to make this transition. So we are putting this as a leaderboard on who is the best country in terms of planting trees. We are launching some exciting features later this year, which will allow you to have these leaderboards of your local regions. So this will allow you to see at a local region who planted the most trees. And as we wanted to plant trees and we wanted to support these reforestation initiatives around the world, we also had a challenge. How do we ensure that all these different reforestation projects around the world are verified? And how do we ensure the trust that if somebody says we are planting a tree, the tree is actually there? Because when it's a single organization, Plant for the Planet, it's really easy to manage because we send a person there. But when the project are in a scale of 100 and 10,000, which we expect to have in the coming years, we had to come up with a new idea. So we are taking the approach to look at these projects using satellites, and maybe in future look into how we could use drones to fly over in these different regions. But the main problem on that is most of these projects around the world don't have good data on how we could do this. So we are coming up later this year with an app that will allow us to do standardized reporting. And I'm going to show you a short video on how the standardized reporting works. So here you could see that if I'm a person working in a reforestation project, at the end of the day where we planted a certain amount of trees, I would open this app. I would say how many trees I planted, which species I planted, and I would select, if I'm on the site, I would say I'm on the site. So this will add an additional layer of verification. And further, I could walk in the location, the first corner where we started planting trees. And then we could take a picture facing the plantation location, and then go to the next location, take the picture, and we can continue this until we reach the end of the planting region. And by walking around this project, we are able to know if the trees are being planted or not. We are able to know how the forest is when it was initially planted. So using this level of reporting mechanism, we could get the data about the trees. And maybe in 6 months, a volunteer or a student nearby can visit the project site and say, I want to take samples for this. So since we already have the initial data, we can compare that data and provide additional information of this. So in a way, we built a ledger about how the forest is growing, not only by the reporting from the project itself, but rather by collective actions where youth can be engaged, students can be engaged, and experts can be engaged. And this is where it comes to our third method of verification of this forest, where we are allowing forestry experts and researchers around the world to look into these projects and write reviews. So we are working with FAO and Crafter Lab, who are leading in this idea that we will build certain indexes which the experts can use to rate these projects. The feature is ready, and we're still waiting for some of these indexes. So this will be live once we have the indexes ready on that. And building all of this, we've been very thoughtful about the community, because we see there's so much integrations that apps in the future can use. For example, there's a big challenge of double spending in carbon finance right now. And we can solve this because when a certain land is used for reforestation, we have the data on how the land is used. So Plant for the Planet app, since we're open source and we provide open APIs, can be the platform where companies offering carbon certificates can point to us and say, this location has been carbon neutral for the last 5 years. So nobody else will be able to use that location for making another company climate neutral. It could be the same. So for example, you support the reforestation initiatives, but if the satellite images 3 years later shows that maybe only 20% of the trees survived, we could look into how many trees we need to restore, and maybe we could get additional funding to restore that location, or maybe identify a different forest or tree type that could be best for this region. So the app in general provides a marketplace for different applications around the world that will in future enable maybe drone mapping. You would just download the Plant for the Planet app and say, I want to fly a drone and get the high resolution images of this so I could share the donors. So we are going to enable these features in future so that people all around the world can see how the trillion trees are being planted in the next decade. The next important thing is Plant for the Planet. It's a nonprofit. We are based in Germany, but we have ambassadors all around the world. And we take no commissions, which means all the donations that any donor makes in a Plant for the Planet app, we do not take any cut. Unlike Kickstarter, GoFundMe, our business model is we take 0 commissions. So we don't make money out of all the free donations that people make in the app. 100% of the donation goes to these organizations so they can use the money for reforestation. So we will find additional ways of operating this. And as of now, we've been very happy to receive support from different individuals and companies to help us further this goal so that the world can have 1 trillion trees. In the last few months, we launched the Plant for the Planet app officially in September. And as of now, we have over 90 projects around the world. With over 35,000 active users. The average donation size on the app is 41 euros, and you can plant a tree as low as 10 cents. And it's important, like since we Plant for the Planet started the app, a lot of the donation that Plant for the Planet received is now going to different organizations. And about a 1/3 of the donation in the app comes to Plant for the Planet, to our planting location in Mexico. And the rest actually goes to these different organizations in the world. And I think we are going to see the fact that people are going to want to plant trees locally, because this is not only going to allow job growth in different parts of the world, but also maintain biodiversity and environment and health of different people living in these different global south regions. I welcome you to download the Plant for the Planet app, or also visit us on the web. You can go to trillion-tree-campaign.org. If you work in reforestation initiatives, you can contact us, and we are planning to release our tree inventory app that will allow the transparent registration of these planting locations later this year. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I would love to have any questions from you.
Thank you, Sagar. Thank you for this great presentation. I think this, I mean, not only because I'm part of this project, but I think this is an amazing project that really tackles both of the main things that our speakers also mentioned: the importance of interconnected action, and a platform that really allows people from all around the world to join this cause with either afforestation projects or just joining the action. But also the ecosystem-based solutions that Ms. Elizabeth also was mentioned. So now we will go to the first round of questions. One of our speakers, Mr. David Nabarro, will actually have to leave us in 15 minutes. So for this round of questions, I would first address 3 questions to Mr. David Nabarro, because he needs to leave soon. Then I think I have 1 question for the 3 of you. And after that, we will give the word to our friend here, Christian, from the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, for a small intervention. So the first questions here, they're all addressed to David. So I'm gonna read them all, and then I will give you the floor. Number 1, from Danielle from Italy. From World Students Christian Federation, Mr. Nabarro mentioned that everything is connected and that we need a joint effort. What is, in your opinion, the best way to foster communication among such different countries? Second question, after COVID-19 pandemic, the world will not be the same. The ongoing ecological catastrophe is a mega crisis. The global ecological collapse will have tremendous consequences on human life and the nature. Biodiversity loss and growth human population are the challenge for post-2020. Unless we control the world, no solution for 2030? What are your comments on this? And the third question, what framework or approach is suggested to support the sustainable practices way more effective and answering nowadays main constraints, especially when the government and corporate leaders are not into having more environmentally and socially responsible? Also, we have seen countries like US suffer more, whereas some poorer countries are fighting better. What are your thoughts on that? This one is from Tracy. I'll give you the word now, Mr. David. You're unmuted.
Thank you very much indeed. My answers will be very repetitive because the questions are just so important. And if you feel that I'm just going on and on saying the same thing again and again, please forgive me. Everything is connected. Actually, world leaders worked that out very clearly in 2015 when they agreed in New York the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It's the plan for the future of people and the planet. It was endorsed by religious leaders, It was endorsed, of course, by political leaders. It was endorsed by civil society leaders, by student leaders, because it's the only plan that we've got. And we only have one planet. So we better use the plan for our one planet. Otherwise, we're in deep trouble. No spare planet and no alternative plan. I encourage everybody who's got the time and the effort to look at that plan. Of course, some people get very focused on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I remember when that plan was negotiated, the people concerned said, don't pick the goals out and just pick on one or the other. Goal 13 for climate change, goal 3 for health, goal 2 for zero hunger, but take them together because they're about people, they're about the planet, they're about new forms of prosperity, like we just heard from Sagar, that involve green jobs. They're about peace and they're about partnership. And there is a series of principles that underlie them that are very clear. The only way forward in our world is an interconnected and integrated approach. So when you're talking to political leaders, tell them they must adopt integrated approaches. When you're talking to your university professors and your vice chancellors or principals, tell them, could you please adopt interdisciplinary approaches for the future? When you're working with NGOs, could you tell them to look at the whole spectrum of sustainable development and not to pick out one part or the other? The great thing about those of you who work on biodiversity is a totally integrative approach to the future. So keep remembering everything is connected. Secondly, yeah, countries have forgotten how to work together. They really have. But don't let them off. Don't let your political leaders pick fights with other countries just because they want to show that one is tougher than the other. Remind them that actually good leadership involves cooperation, not competition. Remind them that actually women do this better than men, but men can practice this form of collaborative leadership, cooperative leadership. The best men do, but show them that the people who've done well on biodiversity, on pandemic, and on climate are usually women leaders. And it's great. And that needs to be brought out. Remind all your political leaders that their job is not to govern for now, it's to govern for the future. And that's absolutely essential. And I know that some of you are wondering whether or not it will be possible to do this now that we've got COVID. Just point out to everybody that COVID is showing us not to take life or livelihoods for granted. We have to work in ways that enable everybody to have a fair chance and a fair opportunity. And that means valuing people, valuing nature, valuing our atmosphere, and therefore preserving climate. And we can do it now. Now, there are many poorer countries who are actually putting this way of working high up in their agenda. Perhaps sometimes their leaders forget, but many of the people within poorer countries, particularly many of those who are governing cities, are very focused on this. Yeah, you can say, how come the United States, at least at the top, appears to have forgotten this? Well, all I can tell you is that there are many people in the United States who believe in the interconnected approach, who believe in people-centered, who believe in sustainable development. Okay, so the one at the top may not, but there are an awful lot of other people who do. So don't give up on the United States. And remember that many of the poorer countries are setting examples on COVID, examples on climate, examples on nature. And let's follow those examples. Don't always see the world as somehow dominated by the rich nations. It may look like that, but actually the world is dominated by good people who are working for the future, good people who are working in an interconnected way. So that's my assembled answer to those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for your answer. We have one question for the three speakers, and I would like to address this question before you have to leave us, which is in around 5 minutes. And then for the audience, we will continue with another round of questions. So for the three speakers, 1 second. I thought I had it here. Question from Fritjof Finkbeiner. The today situation is a tailwind for our work, but we have to use it. Biodiversity loss, pandemics, and climate crisis are three sides of the same coin. How could we use the situation, as many people are worried about future, to mobilize more to take action now? And if you all agree, we go first with David, then we go with Elizabeth, then Sagar.
Okay, I'll be very quick. Number one, find the leaders who are already seeing the interconnections between health, nature, and climate, and talk about them on social media, in your places of work, in your places of education. Make sure that they get the message that you support them, even if you're not in their own countries. Number two, do everything you can to say to other leaders that they must bring these issues together through action and choosing the action that you choose, or through anything that you can do in your place of work or in your place of employment or in your place of education. And then number three, never give up. It's so important. I haven't, I think, ever given up for a moment, and I've been working in these areas in different ways for 45 years. And my line has been the same all my life. There have been bad moments. There have been moments when I felt as though I was failing. There have been mornings when I've got up and I felt completely not going on. Even now, during this COVID, there are some days when I feel absolutely terrible when I get up in the morning because it seems so bleak. But have faith in the human spirit. Have faith in the power of humanity. Never give up. Even in your lowest days, never give up. I know it's difficult, and I know for each one of you, it's a tough one, but connect with your friends. Get your friends to help you up. Connect with people who inspire you, and just keep going. It's the only thing we can do. Thank you for the chance to be with you. I slip off because I have another thing starting in 2 minutes, and I just need to get ready for it. I'm honored to be with you. I'm honored all the time. And just so you know, Elizabeth Maruma is a total superstar, wonderful person, and I'm really fond of her. She inspires me, and I learn from her each time. We really get on well. She lifts me, and Sagar, you're another one who's lifting me, and Paulina, you're a brilliant facilitator. Bye-bye, everybody. Stay strong. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Bye-bye. Happy Biodiversity Day.
Thank you. Thank you. Really important.
Thank you. I think this is a message we all needed to hear. So after this very uplifting and nice message from David, I would like to give the word to Miss Elizabeth now. I'm unmuting you now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I think it's
Hello.
correct. Hello, hello. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
On the same question, of course, David has put it very rightly, but me, I will begin. We have learned over the last few years, the power, we have learned and seen the power of the youth, including the children, in the last few years, especially on climate change issues. Need to use the same. We have seen the youth, the children going to court, basically getting the court to, demanding their governments to take more action on climate change, and the courts have listened. We've seen the youth, the children on the streets globally pushing for climate change issues. Now we have already this morning, it has been underlined the interconnection between biodiversity loss, climate change, our health, and sustainability. Therefore, that spirit needs to continue. The youth are the future generation. If you don't take action today to push the governments, to push your parents, who are the current leaders, to take action today for your better future, then we would have all have lost. And David has mentioned of identifying few governments. I will call, we need to identify few champions who are already speaking the language we are speaking or you are speaking. And I can make reference to some based on a webinar discussion I just had before I joined you of ministers of health globally. The European Union has recently adopted a biodiversity strategy, basically talking and providing that biodiversity will be one of their priorities in the future, and even putting funds into it. UK has done the same and even established an international biodiversity fund. Germany has also called upon other governments to actually use the current COVID opportunity and economic recovery to include nature, to take nature into account. So we already have champions out there, and I've only mentioned few, there are many. The speeches this morning from many ministers were unequivocal in terms of the importance of Nature Biodiversity Day being underlined. The COVID-19 situation has even taught us even more now than ever before. If anybody did not understand the importance of nature and biodiversity before, I think the result, as the result of the COVID-19, now we know better. Much it has not been proved. We are waiting for scientists to give us that full proof, but it is widely alleged that the COVID-19 was as the result of spillover of pathogens, pathogens from animals to human, and transmitted from human to human through trade, tourism, travel, and the like. So if that is the case, it means, and that's why, fortunately, the Biodiversity Day today underlines that it means we don't need to go back to nature to find those solutions. We need to keep the animals back to the forest where they need to be. We have encroached the forest because of deforestation, because of intensification of agriculture and livestock. So now they've followed us and they've come with their ailments. So let's keep the animals where they need to be so that then they have peace there and we have peace here as we build the world in a sustainable way. This is the message we also need to come out unequivocally from the youth. We have learned the lesson globally, and that's why, as David was indicated, everything is interconnected. Be it biodiversity, be it climate change, be it health, everything is interconnected. And likewise, the solutions need to be taken up in an integrated way. And the COVID has also taught us that to deal with the current pandemic, no one country can deal with it alone. It has needed this global solidarity, global responsibility, global collaboration to be able to deal with. So that message has to come out also clearly. And you, the youth, being an important stakeholder of the next generation. The next generation belongs to you. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to the current leaders. Many of us will have retired if not dead. It will be you. So what is happening today, the ones who will be affected, the ones who will implement the decisions of today are the youth today who will be the leaders tomorrow, as I have indicated. So that is important. The message again from the youth, we will soon move to economic recovery post-pandemic. And the priorities will be on economic recovery. We need to ensure that in that economic recovery packages, the stimulus packages, that nature is not forgotten. And that's why we want to have a green economy, circular economy, green jobs, green infrastructure. We need to move away from brown economy to green economy and ensure that sustainability is built on that. We have even more opportunity now as the world is developing the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. We need the Global Biodiversity Framework to actually be the tool to build back better, to ensure it is the biodiversity framework for the post-COVID-19 pandemic. It is the framework that can be used to provide those solutions of today for tomorrow. So let's again ensure that the post-pandemic framework provides us those answers, and it includes that implementation mechanism to ensure that we don't end up with a framework on paper, but a framework which can turn its implementation on the ground. And who will do that? It will be you, the youth today, the leaders tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for the empowering message, Ms. Elizabeth. Sagar, you can take the floor now too.
Yeah, thank you. So I have two answers. The first is a very short answer. And I think the way we can take action is to plant a tree, because planting a tree can never go wrong. If it dies, you can plant another, of course. And if it survives, it's going to capture the carbon. And over the course of years, it can be worth the value, because when the tree grows old, the tree can be used for furniture, which replaces concrete and reduce the emissions. So there's many uses. But the long story is, we've been talking about reducing our emissions, reducing our footprint, reusing all these things for the last decades. And I think what COVID has taught us is we've changed our behavior completely. There's less vehicles in the street. If you go to a public transport, you don't see many people there. People are fearing their lives. And I'm not saying this in a negative way, but I think this is a time for us to rethink, because we young people have been very careful and we've done so many amazing things. And I think this is a time, which is the time for us to say, this is the way that we should reshape our future. Because this is the time when companies open, there's a lot of people going to be working from home. That's going to reduce the daily commute. There's a lot of people that's going to say, I'm going to ride a bicycle because it's going to make me happy, and it's also going to reduce the emissions. And also, riding a bicycle reduces your chances of getting the virus, because you're not getting along in a crowded metro or crowded train or crowded bus. So I think we should use this opportunity as a time where we come up with new solutions to reduce our emissions, and to make sure that we can actually reach the goals that we set in Paris and all different conferences, where we only make targets that we could never reach. And I think this is a time for us to say, maybe we don't need this industry that's financially unsustainable. And maybe this is a time for us to say, all these people that are working on coal jobs who are going to be jobless, maybe it's time for us to guide them to these renewable jobs, so that if the coal industry goes down, they can now shift the jobs to the green industry. And I think this is a very good example where we could now look into these big companies in the world and say, this is the time for them to move, because if it's not financially sustainable, it's not part of the green economy. We have to seek other ways. Maybe the reforestation industry is going to be one of the leading industry in the next decade. And maybe we should look into that. And I think young people especially have quite a lot of voice in the world, and we should not stop speaking. We should not stop acting. And one of the easy ways to get involved is to plant trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Sagar. I agree. And I think we all, as society, we've realized that that a real radical change is actually possible, and that we don't need to wait until a crisis like this makes us move, right? This is something that we can really sink into our heads now. And just as Ms. Elizabeth said, call for action in your daily life, and us as the young generations will be and will have to be the ones to implement all of this actions we're requesting to our world leaders. And speaking about young generations, I would like to let you know, for those who are in Zoom, we are making a small poll here on age. We want to know how many years you have, just to know what kind of range of ages do we have. For those in Facebook, you can also answer if you want. But so far, it's a very interesting result on the poll. We have 2% of our audience in Zoom that are aged below 15. We have also 74% of our audience, it's between 15 and 30 years old, 15% between 30 and 50 years old, and 10% more than 50 years old. So 74%, 76% of our audience are young people and young adults. This is quite encouraging. We're very happy that we have this very big variety of ages, but especially that we have young people with us. Great. So I would also like, because I see some questions about this, I would like to remind our audience that this video or this webinar is going to be uploaded later today to our YouTube page, but it's also going to be available on our Facebook page. For those who are worried that you might miss something about this, don't worry. This video will be available online for you to watch it anytime you want. Great. So now I would like to move on to the next point of the agenda, and I would like to invite my friend Christian from Global Youth Biodiversity Network for an intervention that they planned. Let me see, Christian. After this, we will again open the floor for more questions. Christian, here. I think you're unmuted now.
Wonderful. Yes, it works.
Hi.
Well, first of all, Paulina, thank you so much for inviting us and for collaborating with Gibbon on this webinar. It's the first time that our organizations are doing something like this together. And I just learned a lot about like the activities of your network, and I really, really hope we can continue to do this in the future much more. It is truly inspiring to see like how much you guys get done. I'm so impressed by this. I remember that I saw Felix at one of my first UN conferences in Nagoya 10 years ago. And I was thinking, what is this guy doing? Where's this all going to lead to? Is this going to be like, you know, one of these like show acts, like one of these bubbles where somebody is bringing some young person on the stage, and then after a couple of years, it's all going to disappear because we find another young person that the media is into? And it didn't disappear. You guys built a real movement here, and it reminds me so much of like the work that we've been doing in the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. And I just want to like really from the bottom of my heart pay my respect to this, and thank you all for pulling through with it, because it's really not easy to build such a strong organization like you have done. So thank you very, very much for all of this. I feel I could just repeat what David Nabarro just told us. Like, he was absolutely brilliant. It's good to hear a UN official speaking so straight out on these things. And also Elizabeth, like perfectly connected in all the things, the challenges that we have in front of us. What I want to talk a little bit about is letters on paper, because we as the Gibbon are the youth constituency in the CBD. So one of the main things that we're doing is to try to push parties, governments to first adopt the right words that are then being put on paper, but then we also want them to implement, to really follow with action on the words that are just on paper. And this is the biggest challenge that we're seeing, because in many cases, a lot of this paper goes directly straight into the drawer. And this is something that we absolutely have to change. So I would like to encourage everybody here, never trust words that are just on paper. Actions always speak louder. And we can only force governments to take action if we hold them accountable, if we show them that they cannot get re-elected if they ignore these issues. We see this with our friends from the Fridays for Future. They created a movement. They brought people on the street. And it's now really hard to ignore the voices that are coming out. And I think this is really, really important. But what David Nabarro also told us is that good leadership is cooperation, not competition. And I think he is so true. And I see people here in this call, people like Elizabeth, that are fighting every day so hard to bring different governments together to collaborate with each other. But it is so freaking hard because we have all these interests. And if we look to the COVID-19 crisis, I'm not sure if I should be now hopeful that we will afterwards live in a world where governments will collaborate more, or if this is showing us how much countries are actually interested in their own interests. Like if I look to the US, for instance, like parties are like governments are trying to like secure resources to get a vaccination first instead of focusing on collaboration. A lot of people think, you know, like that focusing on their own national interest is the solution to get out of it. It is not. It is just short-term thinking. It is the same short-term thinking that we've been seeing for years. And when we talk about biodiversity, the patterns are the same. Governments are focusing on their own interest instead of realizing that we are all in this together and that we can only solve it if we overcome these self-interests. And I think the only day when we will be really able to eliminate the thinking that we see in a lot of parts of the world is when we take over ourselves. And I think this is my call to all of you. Don't be afraid of politics. Don't be afraid of taking it into your own hands. Don't be afraid in challenging the people that are currently in office. Only if we talk to these people, if we face them with the realities that we have right now, we will be able to change something. Otherwise, it's not going to work. What David Nabarro also said is that humans are made to work together. And I truly believe in this. I think it is only possible to solve all these issues when we work together, when we believe in a message of love rather than in a message of competition and others that are profiting from something. We really need to work together as one, otherwise it's not going to work. But the world is not one. And the COVID-19 crisis is showing this as well. While I'm sitting here in the comfort of my home and life in the last 3 months was all but normal, but I could still very fairly survive. I have friends in places like Peru, in Congo, in the Philippines, whose life has been falling apart. They lost their jobs, they lost their income, they even had issues to like get the most basic daily needs. And when we're talking about change, we also need to think about these socioeconomic aspects that are sometimes forgotten. When it comes to biodiversity, this is not just an environmental problem, this is something that affects every single sector, and we need to think all of this together. This is livelihoods that are depending on it. And I think when governments are talking about recognizing the rights of use, that's great, but it's the same like when we're talking about new biodiversity legislation. If it's just words on paper, it's not going to help us. And I'm so impressed by what Plan for the Planet has done, because with Gibbon, we've gone through the same struggles. At some point, you need a team, you need people that can really dedicate a lot of their time to building the kind of civil society organizations that you have built. But for this, we need support. And words on paper are not going to give us this support. You need governments, you need institutions that are also willing to put serious funding behind it so that you can go ahead and develop an app like you did, or that you can create this nursery. I think you said you have 38 employees there. That is so impressive that a youth organization is creating employment. But in many other parts of the world, this is the biggest challenge. And when I think back to 10 years ago, when I saw Felix at the COP in Nagoya, and I think about the people that were with me, and I have to say that almost all of those that were fighting for tougher CBD decisions had to go into other sectors. You know, at some point when you finish your studies, you graduate, you need to make ends meet, you can't just live like a student anymore. You have other expenditures. And that's the point when a lot of people decide, okay, maybe I go to the private sector, because even though it's maybe not the thing that I love the most to do with my time, but it helps me to pay my rent. And this is something, I don't want to make this conversation about money or about funding. There are so many people that are like competing over funding, and that's another issue. But we need governments that move beyond words on paper and that are willing to put real resources into the youth sector, into supporting youth organizations like yours, and that are also willing to do this in all parts of the world. It cannot be a privilege of people like me in Germany or in other developed countries to dedicate their time to environmental work. This is really something that needs to happen on the everywhere in the world. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to bring about the change that we need so urgently. And there is like a wonderful quote that I wanted to bring forward from a rights activist, and he said that. Just a second. He said, "It is important to have the spirit and conviction not to accept the problems that you see around you, something inevitable, but instead as something that can be changed and overcome." And I think this is the message that I want to share with all of you. You don't need to be like Greta Thunberg, or you don't even need to be like Felix, even though Felix is amazing. You know, nobody can do everything, but everybody has a skill. Some people are good at managing at facilitating sessions like this. Others are good at coding apps. Some people are really amazing at organizing events and all these things. And if you bring this together, you can bring about the change that we need so urgently. So please, please believe in yourself, no matter where you are, no matter how dire your situation are. If you join together with other people, if we work together as humans, we can change something. And maybe today we can start a first step in this direction and not only celebrate biodiversity on Biodiversity Day, but actually on every day. And I'm glad that Plan for the Planet is already doing this. Thank you.
I think many of us are lost of words. Thank you so much for your message. I think it speaks on behalf of all of us who have been committed to this cause for so many years. Just like everyone that is working with me on the organization of this webinar, Jugratna, who the Sagar himself, we've already committed so many years to this, and hearing the words like this, it's always a restoration on our commitment to this cause. Thank you. Thank you. It was very empowering. It was very powerful. And I'd like to just quote you again to all of our audience. It really is all about doing what you can where you are and committing to the cause. Everyone has enormous power to make changes locally and even globally. So thank you, Christian. And I would like to give the word now to our speakers if they would like to add anything else to Christian's intervention. I found Miss Elizabeth. If it's okay, I'll unmute you and I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Paulina. Christian has already spoken, and gladly the Secretariat of Biodiversity Convention, we work very closely with the Global Youth Network. And I will use also this opportunity on behalf of Christian to also respond to the question of how the youth can be more involved. Global Youth we have been working with, they have succeeded to galvanize the youth globally. I think now the youth in other countries need to support them. They have been representing you in international global meetings, very successful. They have been listened, they have been heard. I think we're all waiting to see whether that listening will really bring tangible actions on the ground, which I think will, knowing very well that the situation where we are in now, everybody is suffering, not just be youth, be all ages are suffering, all countries are suffering, and therefore, irrespective of the level of the country, we are all ready to take action to build back better and not to go back to the norm of yesterday, but a better normal for the future. So I will stop there for now unless there are specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Sagar, would you like to add anything else? Otherwise, also, if it's okay for you, I would like to ask you one very interesting question from our audience directly to you, Sagar. And then, of course, I have some few questions for Elizabeth. We only have 5 minutes, so I think we will be able to address only 2 more questions. Sagar, this is for you. What is the future of no-code platforms when it comes to situations like this? And I think he is both mentioning climate crisis and COVID-19 pandemic.
I think no-code allows many people around the world to build integrations on top of existing applications. I think it has a very easy deployment model where you can connect with different applications, services, data. For example, different countries can use no-code systems or build similar low-code systems that will allow to connect the progress or monitoring, things like that. And I think in case of Plant for the Planet app, and in case of reforestation, I think this will allow us to increase our integrations with devices, with other applications that can easily connect with Plant for the Planet to share the data so that other applications can know how much carbon it is being captured in a certain location, or they could do the data processing and send it back to the Plant for the Planet app. I think the future with no code could be enormous, especially given the challenges there is to learn programming for a lot of us. And while it might be difficult in the early days, also because we, at Plant for the Planet, didn't started to code this app because we wanted to, but rather because nobody was doing it. So we came up in the space because we really believed that we needed a tool like this so that we could engage people around us. So I think no code will be one of the explorations that will happen in the next decades when we have more data.
Thank you, Sagar. We have 3 more minutes, and I would like to take this last chance for one more question from Ms. Elizabeth. This is from Dermot McCary. I hope I'm pronouncing this name. The question is, do you believe in the statement, anything that today is derived from fossil fuels can now be derived from cellulose?
Can you repeat the question?
Definitely. Do you believe in the statement, anything that today is derived from fossil fuels can now be derived from cellulose?
That's a scientific question. I'm not sure I can respond, but what I can say, what we are now calling upon countries, governments, is to actually reduce subsidies on fossil fuel into greener energies. So even moving forward, that will still be our message, particularly when we deal with subsidies, that subsidies should not, government should not subsidize unsustainable brown technologies. And fossil fuel is one of those, which have, for many countries, getting a lot of subsidies. So basically is to urge countries to move away from that into renewable energies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elizabeth. And now we're only 2 minutes away from closing this amazing youth webinar that we have organized. So I would like to thank, first of all, Ms. Elizabeth for joining us today. This was a great honor for us. Thank you for your incredibly empowering messages, also for the very educational content. I'm very happy that our audience actually found a lot of value and new knowledge about not only the risks on biodiversity loss, but also what they can do in their own cities and homes. Thank you again so much. This was a true honor for us. And also, thank you so much, Sagar, for your amazing presentation on this great project we completely love. And thank you for being the person behind all the technical situations there. Thank you for your answers. And I would like to remind everyone that we will be having this, uploading this video of the youth webinar to our YouTube channel, to the Facebook, also videos, and that you can go and see this video again. Us from our houses are still finding these creative ways in which we can still act from our secure homes. So thank you so much again for joining. Thank you especially to Jugratna, to Ude, and to Fatu in the background. Thank you, Christian, from the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. And he's not here anymore, but thank you also, David Nabarro, for joining us today. We invite you all to download our app if you're interested. And if you have any other questions of Plan for the Planet, we encourage you to visit our Facebook pages. Also, I would like to remind you all that we are taking notes of all that has been spoken in this webinar, and our friends in the background will also come up with a document that we will be sharing with you, so we can all have a nice outcome. Thank you again, and I think Jugratna is sharing with us the live, how it looks, our website and our tree planting app. You can
It was supposed to be the closing slide, but that was the right window.
Thank you again for joining us. And if you feel the call to download our app, and even more, to plant some trees, you know, it's just one click away. Thank you again.